Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Close Call. It's a fine Thursday evening. We are heading into the final Saturday of the regular season. It's crazy to say, but that's where we are. It is almost conference tournament and March Madness time. I mean, it is conference tournament time for some of these teams out here. Tickets will be punched this weekend. So I'm exhilarated about that, and I'm exhilarated to have Luke Close back on the show on a Thursday at 7 p.m. like we always do.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Cue up
The
Andy
Nets will be
Williams.
swishing and everyone telling you what teams to fear. It's the most wonderful time of the year. This is March, baby. This is March. We fucking made it to March, baby. And there's no better time. The energy is palpable. You can feel it through the screen. The energy is palpable. This is March. Tickets punched. We're hunkered down in the bracket bunker right now. We got UT Martin versus Eastern Illinois on the TV. There's nothing better than this, except for maybe the opening weekend of college football. There's nothing better than this.
That's Ty Simpson's dad's school against Tony Romo's school. What a
Yeah.
what what
Hey,
what a mashup.
don't forget about Jimmy G.
And Jimmy G, who might be a Dolphin. Just had to throw that in there.
Wow, that would be insane.
Yeah, I saw that report Tuesday, which is insane. But
Yeah.
we've got a couple insane races coming down the line here. Like you said, the energy is palpable. You can feel it in the air right now. Like Phil Collins says, you can feel it coming in the air tonight. It's very true. We're going to talk about seeding here soon. And so, to just give a rundown of what to expect with our show tonight, we're going to be talking about the race for the number one seed, teams on the rise, teams that are falling, and then we're going to make our final regular season predictions, our final regular season game predictions. So let's start this race for the one seed. So Duke, Michigan, and Arizona are all but locked in
Yeah.
to the one seed. There's not really much that they can do to
They
lose
they
it.
are locked in.
They're in.
They are 1,000% locked in.
They're in. No, that is their spot in that. But what's crazy is the race for the last spot is going to come down to UConn and Florida. And I was doing some research going into the show, and I'm going to say off the bat, and I want to hear your counter, but I'm going to say off the bat that I feel like UConn has an advantage here. They are 27-3. They have a strength of schedule of 21st in the nation. Florida's is 11th. They're 24-6, so they have a better record than Florida. Most importantly,
Yeah.
they have the head-to-head
Yeah.
over Florida, and that's so. Not only do they have a better record, but they have the head-to-head. The only thing that I feel like could help Florida get this one seed is style points, because they've been so hot down the stretch. They haven't lost since the last weekend of January when they lost at home to Auburn, and that just looks like more of a fluke than anything at this point.
Yeah.
And so, they've had style points. They've blown opponents out, but at that, I feel like it still might be too little, too much for Florida, even if they win the SEC tournament. But let me hear what you guys say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing right there is what you mentioned with the head-to-head. Now, if you went back and played that game right now, we might be talking about a different head-to-head,
Yeah.
a different result. I think we're both in agreement on that. I think Florida has really showed their mettle recently. But I think that it's interesting because about a week ago, when you're talking about this final one seed, you had a slew of teams that were in contention for it. You had Iowa State, you had Houston, you had Florida, and even Illinois was getting some praise for this final one seed at some point. For me, I think that it's a it's a two horse race right now, Florida and UConn. But I do think that a lot of UConn's strength of schedule comes from a weaker Big East, and that's why I actually think that there is a chance for Florida if they pick up some wins in the SEC tournament, if they win the SEC tournament, and UConn bows out early. I do believe that Florida will get that final one seed simply out of just the one, like you mentioned, the eye test. That streak that they're on is kind of hard to deny. It feels a lot like last year. They're the defending national champions, which is not going to matter this year, but it is something to be known and is something to be said. And I think that UConn has a lot less opportunity in the Big East tournament to really make a case for themselves than Florida does in the SEC tournament. Now, I think that ultimately UConn will get it because I don't see anybody beating UConn in the Big East tournament. So that's kind of where I stand. But whoever gets Florida as their 2 seed, good luck.
Well, that's the thing is even though like yeah it can be a what's the word for it? Like a almost like a moral victory that UConn gets that 1 seed going into March Madness. It's kind of like yeah, we got it. We get to play 16 seed. A 15 seed is almost the same for teams like this, especially a team built like Florida. I think that even though UConn will probably get the 1 seed, I think Florida's a better team. I think Florida's going to go farther.
I think Florida's.
Ultimately,
I agree.
even though like that Florida is one of those teams, just like last season, they developed as the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
The products that they were in December was unrefined. Now it's a well-oiled machine, and that's the difference. They might be the scariest team in the entire nation going into this tournament right now, and it's interesting too when you compare these two side to side because neither conference is as good as we expected it to be going into this season. The SEC
No.
or the Big East. I will still say I think the SEC is a tad bit better, but Florida's got to get those matchups like in Arkansas or in Alabama and blow the doors off of them again.
Tennessee.
Or Tennessee, exactly, to get that differentiation. And then, yeah, you've got to hope and pray for UConn to lose to Creighton again or lose to Providence or maybe even DePaul.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, but just throwing that out there.
Hey, my boys at DePaul. Chris Holtman, what a job he's done.
He's done good. He's done good.
Paul's best season in a long time.
I'll give it to him, and I want to see this team be back. And I love the logos. I love the core. The Blue Demons, right? The Blue Demons. I want to see them be back. But back to UConn, I think that the road is more clear for them for the 1 seed. But I ultimately think that Florida's going to go farther, and I think that I think that UConn could even beat their match in the Sweet 16.
I agree. This UConn team has been sketchy at times.
Yes.
When they're on, they're almost impossible to beat. But sometimes they're inconsistent. They've struggled with a lot of teams that they should just roll over. And I guess that goes for both teams because Florida obviously losing at home to Auburn. Both teams have had a little bit of, hiccups along the road. But, in the end, that head-to-head I think is going to be the deciding factor. And it kind of just sucks that game was played when it was.
For Florida, because if that was played right now, I mean, if they were to do that like they did Duke and Michigan, have them play it in say Charlotte, North Carolina, or something. I think that Florida absolutely wins that thing. But it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out over the next week as we get our brackets ready. We're going to talk about some teams on the rise and teams that are falling, and we'll start with Luke because you've got some interesting risers.
Yeah. So the first team that I'm going to mention on the rise is the Ohio State Buckeyes. They've picked up a few big wins over the past couple of weeks. So Wisconsin being one, Purdue being one, Nebraska being one, I believe. I could be wrong here, but I think that when I look at Ohio State, I think that they are a team that I would not want to play in the first weekend, simply because they have a veteran guard in Bruce Thornton who, when he plays his best games against the best teams, he's had 30 points, and he had 30 points in 3 consecutive games against ranked teams. So he's a force to be reckoned with. John Mobley Jr., great 3-point shooter. Amari Bynum, the freshman, down low, he's really shown strides. Christoph Tilley, I'm not huge on him, but he is an interior presence, and he's a big guy. So I think that Ohio State is a dangerous team to watch. They're still on the bubble right now, but every single game that they play continues to put them in a more secure spot for the NCAA tournament. Congrats to Jake Diebler. And the second team I have on the rise, this is a team that is honestly right now one of my favorite teams to watch, the Cincinnati Bearcats. A few weeks ago, they were 11-12, and Wes Miller apologized to the fan base after a disheartening loss at home. Since then, they've rattled off 6 wins, and they are firmly on the bubble. Just a lot. Joe Lenardi has them in the next 4 out. CBS has them as the second team out. Mustafa Cham, he is a beast down low. The UCF transfer, they went out and paid for him. He has redefined their whole identity. Day Day Thomas, Jizzle James, who was kicked off the team in August, comes back mid-season. This team is complete. I didn't even mention Jalen Celestine. They have a lot of guys that are capable of creating their own shot, and they have a huge bubble matchup this Saturday against the TCU Horned Frogs on the road. I think whoever wins that game, that could be a win and end game. And Cincinnati, they might have to get one more in the Big 12 tournament. I think if they get to 19 wins before they get to 14 losses, I think Cincinnati gets in the tournament.
That's crazy to think. That game is happening right down the road from me here at the Schallemeier.
You might be able to get some cheap tickets.
Honestly, I may want to spectate this thing myself. This could be entertaining, especially with the implications of that. Both teams really trying to get in, and both teams, I feel it could be dangerous. That's how deep the Big 12 is right now.
Yeah.
But I love that you mentioned Cincinnati, because they've been one of those great stories ever since that post game speech there. They have been one of the best stories in college basketball, and
it's what March is about. It's what March is about.
Yes, it is about teams like Cincinnati.
And I'm interested to hear what you have.
Well, I will say that while my list is a bit trickier than yours, for sure, I know you really went into the weeds here to get the two Ohio teams. Cincinnati.
Hey, we gotta cover everything.
Well, we got to cover everything, and that's why I think we're a good duo on here. I'm talking Duke and Arizona on here, and there's a reason why I had both of these two teams on here. Yes, are they 2 1 seeds? Absolutely. So no shit, they're hot, but it's the storylines over the past couple weeks, just why I had these two teams in this grouping for me. So Duke, they're playing UNC on Saturday. They haven't lost a game since the last time they played UNC and lost. And mind you, they were still controlling the tempo a lot in the second half of that game before Ngangba fouled out.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they could have won that one as well. But ever since then, they haven't looked back. And they've only had one win that hasn't been a double-digit win, and that was the Michigan game, who is another 1 seed. Huge quality win for Duke there. They've been – you watch Duke games, they've been beating the brakes off of these ACC opponents. I know the ACC is not great. Look, I mean, you got UNC, you got Louisville, you got Clemson a little bit, you got Virginia a little bit. It's not a great conference. I'm not going to say it is. But they are just jumping on these teams' backs and not getting lost. Look at the NC State the other night. Look at the Syracuse a couple weeks ago. Look at it to Louisville. They're destroying these teams right now. I think that Cam Boozer and Isaiah Evans might be one of, if not the best duos in the nation right now. I mean, their chemistry is phenomenal. They understand each other. There's certain teams that you watch, and you can see the preparation off the court. You can see the basketball IQ. That is Duke right now, and it's how they responded to the North Carolina loss that has me where they are right now, or that has them where they are for me right now. And then Arizona. Similar story. I'm going to make a comparison here. Arizona reminds me of Miami. Not Miami of Ohio, but Miami, Florida in college football this year, where they had a little blip. All right, they had a little midseason slump. Right, you had Miami lose to SMU and Louisville in the middle of the season last year. And then they got hot. Are they going to be a 9 seed like Miami was? No. But they're a very good team. One of the best teams in the nation. Could be the best team in the nation overall. They could be hoisting up that trophy in a month from now, absolutely. But like Miami, they lost consecutively. They lost to Kansas and they lost to Texas Tech in the same week. And there are people out there who thought that Arizona was starting to free fall. I never panicked. I know what this team is made of. I mean, there's some teams out there that just look different, and Arizona is one of those. And they've rebounded. They've rebounded in a major way. Unlike Duke, what separates Arizona State here or Arizona over these past couple of weeks is the teams they've played, the quality wins they've gotten. They've gotten wins over Houston, wins over Kansas, wins over Iowa State, which are all major down the stretch here. I mean, with that stretch, they cemented themselves a spot as a 1 seed. It doesn't even matter
Yeah.
what they do in the Big 12 tournament. That stretch in itself secured Arizona a 1 seed. And again, Jaden Bradley, Burries, great combination. So that's why I have Arizona and Duke where they are right now. But I want to hear about your biggest fallers right now.
Well, first of all, I completely agree with what you said, and there's a lot to be said about teams suffering a loss mid-season and how they respond because we've seen a lot of teams who haven't responded as well. I'll put Nebraska out there as one of them who I feel like has slipped up a lot. But moving on to my fallers, I'm going to start with the Purdue Boilermakers, and here's why I have Purdue where they are. Simply because this team was the AP number one team the first week of the season. They were the AP number one team 3 weeks into the season. This team, for me, I'm not going mainly based off results, even though their results have not been great recently. I'm just going off the eye test. I've watched a lot of Purdue in these last couple months, and it just feels like every game I watch them, it gets worse and worse and worse for them. They were lucky to get out of Evanston with a win. They were they their offense is broken, and let me put it this way: teams have figured out how to neutralize Braden Smith, and Oscar Clough is not good enough down low, and Fletcher Lawyer is not good enough on the ball to make teams have to worry about anybody else but Braden Smith. You can do two things with Purdue. You can either make Braden Smith a scorer and hope he doesn't torch you for 30, which he hasn't done a lot, or you can make him a passer, which I don't advise because he sets everybody else up. But Purdue is a very one-dimensional team. I don't think they really excel defensively. I think that you can break them down defensively. There you have a couple of great individual defenders, but I don't see them really connected as a team on defense. And I think that recently their offense has just been so stagnant, just pass it around the perimeter, dribble on the perimeter, maybe get into the paint once, and then shoot a contested three outside, which is not Purdue basketball. It's not what Matt Painter wants to do. The turnovers have been horrendous. So Purdue for me, they're falling closer to the 4 range, 5 range than they are moving up to the 3-2 in my opinion. So at Purdue in big trouble if you're a Boilermaker. They will be an early exit for me, and I'll book that right now. I don't care what they do in the Big 10 tournament. Early exit for me. And then my second team is the Clemson Tigers. I am full panic mode on Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of what I thought they were going into the year. Now they sat at 20-4, ranked top 20 in the country in January, and since then it's just been a continuous slide. And they've lost a lot of close games, but that's what worries me about Clemson is that I'm not sure that Clemson can win a close game because I don't think that they truly have somebody that can hit the big shot. Godfrey, he's great. He's a great player. He's good down low. I really like Nick Davidson. I've watched him since he's at Nevada. He's a great player. I really struggle to really if you put me in a position and you're like Clemson's down one, they need to win the game. Who's getting the ball? I don't think there's an answer. I think it's whoever gets the open shot, and I don't think that that's a great strategy for Clemson because they're not a great shooting team. They've lost a lot of close games because of their late game execution, and that's a ginormous red flag for me going into March. They're unranked right now. They're in the middle of the pack in a weak ACC, and to me, I just feel like they're falling at the wrong time, and it's going to be tough for me. And they did this last year too. They ended up losing to McNeese State as a 5 seed in the tournament. Same scenario. Clemson, I'm worried about you.
They hope that they don't see another boombox kid in the first round this year, or else
And they might. They're praying Stephen F. Austin wins.
I keep talking about that. Who's gonna play the Lumberjacks? Who's gonna play Lumberjacks? Because I'm genuinely concerned about whoever gets matched up with that team. Because I'm thinking that's where they're gonna be is around like that 13 seed. And so,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of 4 and 5 seeds out there, and even 3s that I feel like are potential frauds, and so it really raises an eyebrow. I've been thinking this way for a while about Steve Nelson's matchup in the first round, so it's gonna be something to watch. But I think you hit the nail on the head with Purdue with that word broken. Their offense something's just not right. The chemistry
Yeah.
is just not there. And then Clemson, like everybody's got to have their guy, right? I mean, Duke, Cam Boozer, Arkansas, Darius Acuff. Like you know who your guy's gonna be. Alabama, Phylon.
Yeah.
You know who it's gonna be, and that's key in these March Madness games. Clemson's lack of identity there is very concerning. But my two teams are both in the Midwest, and they both start with an I. Oddly enough, Iowa State. Man, am I pissed off at Iowa State? You know why? Because I had a concept in my head of a video I was going to make about Iowa State's this week, pretty much praising them. And then the wheels pretty much just fell off. The Cyclones have lost 3 of their last 4 going into March, which is very, very concerning. And then there has been a dip in scoring. Like I felt like they were in the 80s and 90s for a while. It's past couple weeks. It's been low 80s, 70s, even 60s to finish some of these games. And then individual players. I mean, Milan Momčalović, I got it. I start with European names. I told Luke that. I got it. And then Kylian Toure, too, has been struggling a lot as well. Just like no rhythm. Like I was going back and looking at their scoring charts, their shooting charts, their stats the past couple of games, and it's been just very hot and cold. And especially early in Big 12 play, those are 2 guys that every game were going. And recently,
I can't believe you're brave enough to do that.
It's been what?
I can't believe you're brave enough to go and look at an Iowa State shot chart.
It wasn't aesthetically pleasing, as the kids say, by any means. But I feel like the Cyclones are losing momentum at the wrong time right now. And I was very high on this team about 2 weeks ago, and it's weird because it's like the lights just went out, and I can't even explain what's happened. It's just the rhythm isn't there right now. The momentum is just not on their side. They've had a couple guys kind of lose confidence shooting the ball recently, and this is not the time that you want to be going into that kind of pattern right now. And it's funny. Illinois is another one, and we said this at the beginning of this show that even just last week, these 2 teams were in our 1 seed conversation. That's how quick. I mean, life comes at you fast at this time of year, and it's come at both of these teams very quickly as other teams in their respective conferences have separated themselves. Like undeniably, Arizona has separated themselves from an Iowa State. Michigan has separated themselves from an Illinois, and they did that individually last Friday when they strategically took their foot and shoved it up Illinois' ass on Friday Night Football or Friday Night Basketball last week. And that to me was eye-opening about Michigan, because I've had my thoughts about them. Just if they're to get into a game like that against TCU or Duke, where they're not shooting as well. But the way that I saw them thug it out against Illinois, I was like, man, this is a damn good basketball team. And then Illinois, just the fact that they had no pulse at home. I feel like that was very concerning. I thought that them playing Michigan at home, that thing would at least go down to the wire.
Me too.
Michigan just took over. They were more physical. They were more imposing. They're better at winning the rebound battle of the basket. And I feel like that's not the last time you're going to see that happen to Illinois down the stretch. And they've also allowed a lot of points in a couple of these games recently. I mean, 95 to UCLA, and got their problems with Mick Cronin right now, so to speak. And then Michigan, I mean, 84 compared to the Illinois defense that we had seen in past weeks. It's just been a little concerning what's happened recently. So 2 teams that I think both of us were very high, and at one point, we're now looking at them kind of like, what gives? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll say this. Watching that Iowa State game the other day on Big Monday against Arizona, they were at one point 12 of 50 from the field, if I remember correctly. And Josh Jefferson, one of those guys you mentioned who's lost confidence, he was 1 of 15 from the field, and that's simply not going to get it done. Iowa State is slipping, like you said. It's very concerning. One thing that I'm really puzzled about with Illinois is that they were in such a rhythm throughout January and February, and then they returned Kylan Boswell from injury. And theoretically, you're like, wow, Illinois, they struggle on defense at times. They get this great defensive guard back who's also kind of the point guard and the leader of the team. And he's played pretty well. I mean, he's playing well right now. My thought is maybe something's just weird with him in this system, and they play better because he does need the ball so much. And I feel like it's stagnating this Illinois offense. And I'm not going to blame it all on Boswell because other guys have to step up too. The Avicii's need to step up. Henriquez needs to step up.
Yeah.
Stojakovic needs to step up. But yeah, Illinois is they're a puzzling case for me because that Michigan game there I did not see that coming, and the way they just kind of shut down too, very concerning.
No, it was. And it was almost like a mental toughness thing. Like I felt like they kind of like tucked their tail between their legs especially in the second half of that game. Like I was very puzzled by what I saw. Like to use your word, like it was just it was very concerning. And sometimes teams like Michigan have that air about them where they can break an opponent. And maybe that's what happened. Like maybe Illinois saw that and they're like, this is what the top actually looks like. Are we actually as good as we believe we once were? So I'm curious to see how they're going to rebound and manage and response down the stretch here. But the stretch goes on into this weekend. So like I said, we've got our final weekends of the regular season quickly approaching. We have a game tomorrow night. We have Maction. We have Friday night Maction basketball in the state of Ohio between the team from Miami, Ohio, and the team from Athens, Ohio, home of Joe Burrow, the Ohio Bobcats. This is the last chance right here. This is the last chance for a MAC team to be the first to knock off Miami of Ohio in the regular season. And I know they'll have chances next week in the MAC tournament, but there's just something special about doing it on your home court and having a court rush and whatnot. Like there's something to be said about that. Doing it in the regular season, it just feels special. And so this is the Bobcats are the last MAC team that have the chance to do that. And if Miami of Ohio escapes this, quite frankly, I think they're a shoe-in at this point. They might even be right now. Because they're over 30 wins now, so they might even be at this point.
Well, they better be.
Yeah, I made a video about it last week, and I believe it. I think that the pitchforks might be coming for the NCAA if they're not let into this tournament.
Real quickly before we break down this game, I have a conspiracy theory. If Miami gets left out of the tournament, the reason the NCAA will use it as a way to expand the tournament. That's my conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's crazy. I made that little video after the game last week, and I said that I'm like they're looking to expand to 76 here. Like, is this going to be a piece of leverage they're going to use? And I hope not, because I think 68 is great. I thought 64 was great. To be honest with you, feel of 64 just sounds great. But you break down this game here. There's a matchup that pops off the page to me here, and it's Ohio State's, or excuse me. It is Ohio's perimeter defense against Miami's shooters. That's what's going to be a difference maker, because Ohio has been piss poor with perimeter defense this year. They are 315th in the nation in opponent 3-point percentage, so they struggle with limiting the three. And Miami's a top 10 team shooting the three in the NCAA. I was going to say FBS, but that's football. They are 8th in the nation right now with the three. Miami is favored by 9.5 going into this game. I think that they cover and smother that point spread. I think they win 85-70 and complete the perfect regular season.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Ohio. There's a couple of guys. I remember the good old days of Ohio basketball, led by Mark Sears and Ben Vanderplas. Those Ohio teams were incredible to watch. Ohio basketball has a deep love in my heart, but so does this Miami, Ohio Redhawk team. These guys are just extremely fun to watch, and they've had their slip ups recently. They have luck has been on their side. I'm curious to know what their luck rating is on Ken Palm. I'd be willing to bet it's top 20. How you judge that, I don't know. But it is something to be known. And I think that Miami, Ohio has kind of lost a step, maybe half a step going down the stretch here. But that's just because they're getting everybody's best shot. They're everybody's Super Bowl. The undefeated team comes into your arena. That's your Super Bowl in the MAC. I still think Akron is a great team in the MAC, a team to be watched out for, and that was a close game early in January against those two teams. Yeah, to your point, Ohio just they don't really click. I've watched a few of their games this year. They're not my MAC team of choice to watch. I don't find them super enthralling. So I think Miami, Ohio is going to go in there and they're going to get it done. 9.5 is a lot for me. I think that Ohio might cover. So I'm going to go around your score. I'm going to go 80-72. I think Ohio does cover, but I don't think that it's as close as the score says. I think Miami, Ohio kind of lets off the gas a little bit. I think they'll be up double digits for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if they take their foot off the gas towards the end and Ohio makes a little run, like I could see that making it like an 8-point victory. But at the end of the day, I think that the matchup just heavily favors the Red Hawks tomorrow night. So giving
And
Miami to finish out.
And one more thing is the return of Skeljack is huge for Miami, Ohio.
Oh,
He
totally.
was out a couple games, and I didn't realize how much of an impact he had on their offense until he was gone. So happy he's back.
Some guys you just don't realize it until they're off the court. And you're like, man, that guy's valuable. So
Yeah,
Skeljack coming back is huge for Miami of Ohio, and I think that they're going to ride the wave right into the MAC tournament here. So giving Miami of Ohio tomorrow night, and then speaking of best shots, Alabama is going to be getting Auburn's absolute best shot
oh yeah,
on Saturday evening. Why? Because Auburn needs it. When you've got Bruce Pearl on TV, like actively pleading for Auburn to get into NCAA tournaments, you know they've got something to fight for here. Um, and they are, because according to a lot of metrics out there, Auburn still somehow has a chance. How, I have no idea. My theory is I think that going into Florida and beating them there holds a lot of weight.
it does.
That's just my personal feeling. I think
And
that might
they also beat St. John's too, so they have a
and
lot
beat
of good wins.
there's the good wins are the only thing, because compared to a lot of the bubble teams, I just don't think that they had those matchups, because Auburn was a really good team last year. They scheduled really competitive matchups, and you see teams in the SEC like Vanderbilt, Georgia. They didn't start the season with those games like Michigan and St. John's and some of the other games that Auburn had, Alabama had, Arkansas, Florida early in the season. A lot of your bubble teams didn't have those, so I think that might be the one thing keeping them in the conversation. But needless to say, Auburn on average is not a great basketball team. All right,
No,
they are very streaky, and this is a rivalry game on Saturday. I think that Alabama is a much better team than Auburn. I'm just going to say that. I think they're a lot better shooting the ball. I think they're a lot more efficient of a team. I think they're a lot more consistent. They're a lot cleaner. They're a lot more well coached of a basketball team, to be honest with you, than Auburn is. Bruce Pearl is no longer there, and it shows. You've seen it show at a lot of times this year. However, all of that means nothing on Saturday, even though it's in Coleman, because Auburn is going to play at maximum intensity. Auburn battled Alabama point for points in Neville a couple weeks ago. That game had me stressed out as shit. I'm not going to lie. And I think that this game, optically, is going to be very similar to that first game. It's going to be shot for shot for shot for shot. It's going to be very physical in the paints. Everything you'd expect out of a rivalry game. I just feel like Alabama is going to win several possessions down the stretch in the second half on Saturday. And I think Alabama is going to pull out a win 92-85 to end their season, their regular season at Coleman Coliseum.
Yeah, so I will be in attendance for this game, which will be fun. I have watched the last few Alabama Auburn basketball games in Coleman Coliseum. Last year, I camped outside for the full 24 hours by myself in the freezing cold to watch Auburn come in and beat Alabama in Coleman. I was there a few years ago with the Brandon Miller team, where it was to clinch the SEC, and Auburn went up 15 points as an unranked team, and Alabama clawed back and got it to overtime and won the game. With that being said, I saw Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith come in and beat Alabama. I Auburn plays well in Coleman Coliseum, and that's what's really concerning. Um, but like you mentioned, I think that Auburn is just not a very well-rounded basketball team. I think they're very ISO dependent. They don't share the ball very well. Alabama's going to get their best shot. They're going to lay everything out on the line because they have to. And to go back to your point with the NCAA tournament, in my honest opinion, Auburn has 16 wins right now. You cannot get into the NCAA tournament unless you have 18 wins. So, and that is a proven fact. I can't remember the last time a 17 win team got into the NCAA tournament, and really not many 18 win teams get into the tournament either. So Auburn knows that this is a must win. With that being said, I agree with you. Alabama more efficient. Alabama's coming off of a loss where they really didn't have much focus at Georgia. Really disappointing loss there. Georgia also just lit the nets on fire.
Yeah.
And so I think that Alabama's going to be refocused. They know what this game means. They know with a win, you get the 2 seed in the SEC tournament. You avoid Florida. You have a chance to do something really special with a win against Auburn. You have a chance to sweep them as well. I think Alabama's going to be fired up. I think Alabama is going to control the tempo, and I think Alabama is going to ultimately win 90-76. I think it's going to be a little bit less. I do think it'll be close in the first half. I think Auburn might go on a couple runs, but ultimately Alabama is just too much. It's too much, and LeBaron Philon is going to be too much. And Latrell Wrightsell has been great for Alabama recently, and it's another Aiden Holloway revenge game. So I'm calling Biz, I'm calling the bank, and I'm calling Bama, and I think Bama gets it done.
I'm with you, and there's all these factors swirling around this game as well. Like you said, Alabama seeding, Auburn's chance to get into the damn dance.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to for them. But at the end of the day, as an Alabama fan, I see that blue and orange, and it's time to go. And all the other factors don't matter. It's about winning your state, and that's what it always comes down to. And that also reigns true for the Tobacco Road rivalry, the rematch. And let me tell you, as a Duke fan, I have to pull for Bama too because it's where I went to school. But I was a Duke fan at the age of 8, and UNC. That's the one I circle on my calendar every year, and I felt some type of way ever since that loss a couple weeks ago. And I think me and all the other Duke fans out there have every right in the world too, because it was in our hands. It was absolutely in our hands. The buzzer beater, Nagangwa following out. This is Duke's chance for revenge, and I think that they are absolutely going to get it. Not to spoil my pick here. The big storyline going into this game, of course, is Caleb Wilson. Will he be a go or will he not? As of right now, he's trending upwards. He's trending like he will be on the floor on Saturday. And quite frankly, I hope he is because I want their best shot. I don't want we didn't have Caleb Wilson in the second game. I want him on the floor on Saturday to get North Carolina's complete, most fair shot possibly can. But at the same time, you've got to acknowledge that even though they're getting him back, it's over a month it's right around a month since he's played. So there's going to be some rust there. He's going to have to get back into his rhythm. North Carolina's offense is going to have to get back to working with him in the system and that's always an adjustment. And doing that on the road in Cameron indoors, not an ideal place where you'd want to do that. Um, and so I just think that there's too many advantages pointing in Duke's direction here. I actually think that Duke is clearly a better basketball team. I think that North Carolina has good ball control. I think that they're a smart basketball team. I think that they're good at limiting mental mistakes. But Duke's a higher scoring team. All right, they play with a faster tempo than North Carolina. They overwhelmed them a lot in that first game, and now especially being in Durham behind the crazies. I think that Duke is going to win this thing 78-71.
Yeah, we know how this rivalry goes. Crazy things happen. They always happen. And I agree with everything you said. And one more thing about Caleb Wilson is that if he is a go, how healthy is he really? I mean, he's not 100% regardless. He's coming off of a fractured hand. It's a pretty difficult injury to play with in basketball. I saw Herb Jones, one of the best Alabama basketball players ever, make 2 free throws with his offhand with a fractured hand, wearing a cast. But he still was. I mean, we were playing 4-on-5 outside of his defensive capabilities, which is kind of similar to Wilson because he's that great of a defender. Duke has been on another level recently, and I'm going to use the same mindset I have with Alabama on Duke. They're coming off of a loss in this rivalry, and they're going to be fired up. This is a team that doesn't come out slow. They don't let storylines get in their way. They really are a well-rounded basketball team. They do pretty much everything well. I mean, I just saw them dismantle the NC State zone on the road. I mean, it was a complete dismantling. Every possession was a good shot. There was nothing going right for NC State. I don't know how NC State stayed in the zone for that long. Just a it was coaching malpractice by Will Wade, and I'm happy because I cannot stand Will Wade. I'm glad you're gone. But anyways, enough of Will Wade. He always gets in my head somehow. But I don't think this game's going to be particularly close. And that's crazy because it's Duke versus North Carolina. But that's how sold I am on Duke, and that's how sold I am on the narrative surrounding the game. And that's also it's. I mean, I guess with Duke, senior night doesn't really matter, but it is senior night in a way. So I got Duke winning this game in a higher scoring matchup. I got 84-68. I think that they're gonna really dismantle the Tar Heels like they did NC State, and I think Duke. eh, I don't think there's a team right now in the ACC and outside of Arizona and Michigan, maybe UConn and maybe Florida, the country that can play with Duke on the same court as of right now, how they're playing right now. Now that I said that, North Carolina fans rejoice. You're going to win this game on a miraculous shooting performance from Seth Trimble and Bogovac. Like it's gonna be miraculous when North Carolina wins this game, and I'm gonna come back to this video and look like a fucking idiot. So, but I got the Blue Devils right now.
Just like we did on the first one. I mean, it's and you saw. I mean, the first matchup was a direct illustration of what we said. North Carolina needs things to go their way to win this, and they did. He had Ngongwa foul out that changed Duke's strategy completely, offensively and defensively. They're not able to rebound and manage possessions the way that they're able to for the first 65% of that game before he went out.
Yeah.
Duke's at full health. You know, they play smart, don't rack up fouls on Saturday. I think that this is going to be a clear Blue Devil win. So that's it. That's our final predictions for the regular season.
I'd like to say one thing real fast.
Yeah.
And you might know where this is going. You might not. In other basketball news today, I have my Celtics green on, and that is because the face of the NBA is back. Jason Tatum, welcome back, Jason Tatum. I had to put it out there. I'm ecstatic.
I gotta say, you know, I'm happy for the guy, but I want to make this clear that I'm pissed off at Jason Tatum. I'm damn pissed off at Jason Tatum. I got something to say about Jason Tatum because you know what? He was my favorite Duke player of all time. He still is. And I like Jason Tatum, but there's something that we're gonna address right here. You keep my Memphis Grizzlies out of your mouth, pal. Okay? That stray that we caught 3 weeks ago of yeah, well, at least I'll play for a sorry team like the Grizzlies.
Yeah,
Yours, pal.
hey, and you know what? If he took a lie detector test, no lies would be told. He's 100% right.
Wait, look, we do have a pretty poor history, and I really thought that we were getting on the right path in 22, yeah,
Boom,
2021,
boom, boom,
2022, and then one
boom, 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 boom,
one
boom,
hand
boom, boom.
gesture, and we're back in the shitter once again. If there's any team out there, most of my teams I pull for are very good, but if there's one team out there that gives me a copious amount of sadness, it's the Memphis Grizzlies, because it's just, man, it's sad every year.
Yeah, they're Memphis is in a rough spot.
We're a very, very rough spot. But look, when they're hoisting the Larry O'Brien one day, I'm gonna be the guy that was with them in the trenches, in the mud. So I'm gonna ride it out.
Hey, you do you, man.
I'm gonna ride it out with the Grizz. But yeah, Jace Tatum will always be my guy, but I had to clear the air on that one, because that one was really, that statement was pissing me off, man.
I'll tell Jason you said that.
No, yeah, please do. Please forward the message, damn it. But that's all that we've got for our show today. Let me know your picks in the comments, and well, needless to say, you're gonna be seeing a lot of us here in these next couple weeks, because we're just kicking into gear. Oh, I think we lost Luke here. We did. But thank you all for watching. Have a great day.